TV. History of Mother Russia, Part 1. So go get your vodka and get, I'm sorry, your vodka, and get ready to turn up the volume to my microphone. Get ready to enjoy some drinks. So it's Thursday. I am putting up the last of my World War I 1918 tomorrow morning, and I'm sorry, bud, I don't have your name offhand, but out of respect I'm going to look for it right now, because you deserve a little shout out. Panda Nemi 023. And by the way, Biff Webster, thank you for the casualties are not just dead. In my mind, I hear casualties, but I understand it's a combination. But I always just think the worst. But anyways, Panda was explaining some things about, I questioned why Russia just let Finland go. And we got to talking, going back and forth, very informative. And then I said I was going to do this video, and they recommended that I do all of Epic History TV's Russia series. So I think there's 5 parts. They're much shorter than the World War I, but you know, hey, we'll do them anyways. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Like and subscribe. It's funny, when I started doing the World War I, I've seen my viewership in America drop from 50% to about 44%, and now it's up to about 46%. And Romania and Russia and Sweden and Poland was on there. Yeah, it was just kind of made me laugh. I was like, maybe it's all coincidence, but you know, hey, it's something that affects those countries, so of course they're gonna see what this American idiot has to say. So let's see what this American idiot has to say about the history of Russia. I'm pretty sure it was a smooth transition from start to finish. Let's go.
For thousands of years, the lands known today as Russia and Ukraine were inhabited by nomadic tribes and mysterious Bronze Age cultures. The only record they left were their graves. In the great open grasslands of the south, the steppe, they buried their chieftains beneath huge mounds called kurgans.
Stupid question. I'm going to guess this is a horse. Or a goat. Nah, it's got to be a horse. It ain't a dragon. We can all agree on that.
The ancient Greek historian.
Side note, I'm sorry, this has, I'm seeing the mounds. So, in Illinois side, across from St. Louis, if anyone is interested, the Cahokia Mounds are there. And I want to go there and film it. There were 120 mounds, and so like the Mississippian people live there, and about 1,000 years ago they estimated that up to 40,000 people, like basically just varieties of tribes, all just lived together. It was just a big communal city. And at the time, their city would have been bigger than London or Paris. It was I almost said a mound society, but the chief, he had the biggest mound, and it's still there today. I think there's down to 80. The second biggest mound, I think, was knocked down it was used, basically they just used it for the dirt and stuff like that. It was, they didn't realize how important it was until like years later, just a couple years later, when they were like, I probably shouldn't have done that. But the hey, get out of there. The mountains are there, and you can go up and you can go up to the top of the one, excuse me, and you can see the arch in St. Louis. Oh man, I'm hiccuping and burping. But these mountains remind me of that. Completely off topic, I apologize. On with the video.
Historian Herodotus called these people Scythians. Their lands were overrun by the same nomadic warriors who brought down the Roman Empire. The land was then settled by Slavs. They shared some language and culture, but were divided into many different tribes. Vikings from Scandinavia, known in the east as Varangians, rode up Russia's long rivers on daring raids and trading expeditions. According to legend, the East Slavs asked a Varangian chief named Rurik to be their prince and unite the tribes. He accepted and made his capital at Novgorod. His dynasty, the Rurikids, would rule Russia for 700 years. His people called themselves the Rus and gave their name to the land. Rurik's successor, Oleg, captured Kiev, making it the capital of a new state, Kievan Rus. A century later, seeking closer ties with the Byzantine Empire to the south, Vladimir the Great adopted their religion and converted to Orthodox Christianity. He is still venerated today as the man who brought Christianity to Ukraine and Russia. Yaroslav the Wise codified laws and conquered new lands. His reign marked the golden age of Kievan Rus. It was amongst the most sophisticated and powerful states in Europe. But after
Kingdom of Poland, Kuman Confederation, Byzantine. Huh.
After Yaroslav's death, his sons fought amongst themselves. Kievan Rus disintegrated into a patchwork of feuding princedoms, just as a deadly new threat emerged from the east. The Mongols under Genghis Khan had overrun much of Asia. Now they launched a great raid across the Caucasus Mountains and defeated the Kievan princes at the Battle of the Kalka River, but then withdrew. 14 years later, the Mongols returned. A gigantic army led by Batu Khan overran the land. Cities that resisted were burnt, their people slaughtered. The city of Novgorod was spared because it submitted to the Mongols. Its prince, Alexander Nevsky, then saved the city again, defeating the Teutonic Knights at the Battle of the Ice, fought above a frozen lake. He remains one of Russia's most revered heroes. The Mongols ruled the land as conquerors. Their new empire was called the Golden Horde, ruled by a Khan from his new capital at Sarai. The Rus princes were his vassals. They were forced to pay tribute or suffer devastating reprisal raids. They called their oppressors Tatars. They lived under the Tatar yoke. Alexander Nevsky's son, Daniel, founded the Grand Principality of Moscow, which quickly grew in power. Under the great Uzbek Khan, the Tatars converted to Islam. A rising power, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania defeated the Tatars at the Battle of Blue Waters and conquered Kiev. 18 years later, Dmitry Donskoy, Grand Prince of Moscow, also defeated the Tatars at the Great Battle of Kulikova Field.
this is all very interesting, but I'm not going to remember any of the names. So I do apologize for that. I can already tell you, I've already forgotten some of them. Most of them. All of them. Very interesting, though. I mean, there's so much history here. It's easy for me to remember American history. George Washington. Battles. Okay. There's been more shit happening here than there is in the history of our country.
After years of infighting, the Golden Horde now began to disintegrate into rival khanates. Constantinople, capital and last outpost of the once great Byzantine Empire, fell to the Turkish Ottoman Empire. Some hailed Moscow as the Third Rome, the seat of Orthodox Christian faith. Now Rome and Constantinople had fallen. Meanwhile, the Grand Princes of Moscow continued to expand their power, annexing Novgorod and forging the first Russian state. At the Ugra River, Ivan III of Moscow faced down the Tatar army and forced it to retreat. Russia had finally cast off the Tatar yoke. Under Grand Prince Vasily III, Moscow continued to grow in size and power. His son, Ivan IV, was crowned the first Tsar of Russia.
Vasily? I already forgot how to say his name. I've heard that one. Obviously, I've heard Ivan the Terrible.
He would be remembered as Ivan the Terrible. Ivan conquered Tatar lands in Kazan and Astrakhan, but was defeated in the Livonian War by Sweden and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Ivan's modernizing reforms gave way to a reign of terror and mass executions, fueled by his violent paranoia. Russia was still vulnerable. Raiders from the Crimean Khanate were able to burn Moscow itself. But the next year, Russian forces routed the Tatars at Molody, just south of the city. Cossacks now lived on the open steppe, a lawless region between three warring states. They were skilled horsemen who lived freely and were often recruited by Russia and Poland to fight as mercenaries. Ivan the Terrible's own son, the Tsarevich, fell victim to one of his father's violent rages, bludgeoned to death with the royal scepter.
Oh my God.
The Cossack adventurer Yermak
He beat his son to death.
Timofeyevich led the Russian conquest of Siberia, defeating Tatars and subjugating indigenous tribes. In the north, Arkhangelsk was founded, for the time being Russia's only seaport linking it to Western Europe, though it was icebound in winter. Ivan the Terrible was succeeded by his son, Fyodor I, who died childless. It was the end of the Rurikid dynasty. Ivan's advisor, Boris Godunov, became Tsar. But after his sudden death, his widow and teenage son were brutally murdered, and the throne seized by an impostor claiming to be Ivan the Terrible's son. He too was soon murdered. Russia slid into anarchy, the so-called Time of Troubles. Rebels and foreign armies laid waste to the land, and the population was decimated by famine and plague. Polish troops occupied Moscow. Swedish troops seized Novgorod. The Russian state seemed on the verge of extinction.
Jesus. So I have to believe that I've just listened to wars of a bunch of people dying. That's crazy. Wow. Well, if I do have a small percentage of Russians who watch this, jump in, make some comments. What's your favorite Ivan the Terrible brutal story? Oh, wow. Well, this is interesting. I'm going to keep going. I was told to watch all of them to get a better understanding on... I don't even remember, man. I got to check what we were talking about. Just words. All right, well, this is a short one. I'm going to end it here. And I'm going to jump right into the next one. But these will go up next week. This will be put up Monday morning. It's Monday morning now, we'll say. And if this is 5 parts, then I'll release all 5 next week. 1 every day, and then something else in the evening. All right? I'm going to try to get to 2 a day for 5 days. So that means I got to keep making them. All right. This is good. I'm going to make another one. Have a good day. Have a good night.